To further the conversation on Africa's transition to cleaner energy, I'm joined by Andries Rossouw. He is the PwC Africa Energy Utilities and Resources Leader. Thank you, Andries, for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, according to this report, Africa has the potential to meet domestic and international energy market demands. So what would you say are the key opportunities and challenges for Africa's energy sector, seeing that it has the potential, but what are the challenges? What are the issues?
That's absolutely right. So globally, there's been a very lack of investment in the oil and gas sector, or fossil fuel sector for the last 10 years plus. And we are seeing that the finds that we've recently had in Africa are really potential game breakers and potential fantastic supplies into the global market. We know the energy transition globally is off to a rocky start, and lots of volatility in prices. Therefore, it's actually necessary that Africa, as a big owner of phenomenal fossil fuel resources, deliver into that global demand and make sure that we get an orderly transition by not having excessive price increases, have enough supply in the market, and therefore that support.
Right.
Locally, Africa must also benefit from their own resources, and by maximizing the value that we get from these resources, we can certainly grow this continent in a big way.
All right. Well, it's believed that Africa is actually progressing positively on its efforts to make a clean energy transition possible. But then these efforts, need to be coupled with the ability to balance the development of fossil fuel energy resources and renewable energy. So what must Africa do to ensure balance and make the transition faster as it hopes to become a major exporter of energy to the world?
So at the moment, Africa generates 25% of its own energy needs or electricity needs through clean energies. Half of that in hydropower and the others in other renewables, some in wind. So compare that 25% to a global average that's below 17%. Then Africa is actually doing really well. But we've got the value sitting in our fossil fuel resources. We need to exploit that as efficiently as possible, taking into account local community needs, taking into account environmental needs, but deliver and maximize value so that we can use that value locally in order to grow a local energy sector. And on the back of the local energy sector, it gives you opportunity for industrialization benefits, provides opportunity to grow and develop our own country and people. At the moment, we still sit with almost 600 million people without direct access to electricity. And that clearly is a very easy step to provide a big improvement to lives and also a big improvement to health and the environment by providing them with electricity.
I like how you've talked about some of those things, talking about energy poverty in Africa. Let's look at this now. Africa's decarbonization is important. However, the eradication of energy poverty, which you just talked about, and improving energy security needs to be considered. So let's put all of these together. In what ways can governments and the private sector collaborate to ensure that investments in new technologies are optimized?
Yes, so it absolutely is necessary for government and the private sector to work together. When we work in collaboration, it ensures appropriate governance processes are in place. It ensures that the important need of all the people in the various countries are taken into account, but also the desperate need from business to be profitable and operate in an efficient way. That collaboration goes well beyond energy. I think infrastructure, creation of infrastructure on the continent is probably one of the best ways of improving efficient energy use and providing massive development opportunities for our people. It's improving lives all across.
Absolutely. Well, let's look at this now. Gas, we know, will continue to be a key contributor to energy and industrial systems in many countries, and it will also retain a critical role in power generation as a fuel for base load and flexible generation. Now, has this energy potential been harnessed enough? And we can even start from Nigeria, for instance. Has that been harnessed enough?
No, I think the answer is no. It can be harnessed and should be harnessed much more. We are seeing a great opportunity for gas in the export market, in other words, generating that income that the continent need to get from it. But gas as a byproduct to oil certainly provides fantastic opportunities for generating local electricity. Effectively putting that byproduct through gas to power provides immediate benefit. It does mean, though, that in order to do that, we create that collaboration, as we spoke about earlier, where we ensure that there's appropriate rates in place, that the market is adequately developed to allow that private participation in the gas generation, on the power generation on the back of gas. We need to remember that gas is a big play. You cannot do gas, or you can do gas with a small play, but it's not efficient. So if you create a good market for power, good market for gas, big scale means that the demand pool that gas will have creates local industry and local energy dependency.
Well, we know that Africa has the potential. When we talk about cleaner energy, we have all the resources, whether it's hydropower, whether it's gas, whatever it is, Africa has it. But we've seen what the example we have with fossil fuels, where we're not even producing optimally. So how do we ensure that when we're talking about transition, when we're talking about renewable energy, when we're talking about a cleaner, safer environment and all of that, how do we ensure that Africa doesn't lag other countries, because we have the resources? So how do we ensure that the same thing that happened or that's happening with fossil fuel doesn't even repeat itself?
Yes, that's true. And clear governance, good transparency around the development of new projects is paramount. And you're right. Unfortunately, our continent has got a history of the oil curse, if you want to call it that, on the back of big fines, and then the value generated from that not translating into local benefits for the local population and local economic growth. A lot of challenges around corruption, I suppose, historically around this, and therefore that need to apply appropriate governance at the top to make sure that the value that is generated, because there's massive value generated. The oil companies on a global basis that extract our resources do pay big amounts of tax in the forms of royalties, in the forms of various indirect taxes, in the form of paying labor locally, etc. And it's about harnessing that potential and channeling it to create the local benefits for our people.
Absolutely. Now,
so new finds like we've had in Mozambique, Tanzania, those developments coming off the ground. New finds in Namibia, where we see fantastic potential, oil again with gas as a byproduct that can really change local dynamics. It's important that those new projects are starting off on the right foot and certainly generate the value for the countries where they are.
All right. There are those who have talked about how that some of the challenges, or a big challenge for Africa, is actually the infrastructure to drive these things. So what model are we looking at to ensure that we have the infrastructure, we drive these things, and we do not just stop at the exploration level? Beyond exploration, we are probably, involved in the value chain, because that's where the money is. So we don't export jobs, we don't export some of those things, and at the end of the day, we keep coming back to the same story over and over again. There are those who have said this is the decade for Africa. So how do we maximize this decade? How should Africa take hold of this decade?
Yeah, so I believe the start to that is having a look at the strategic opportunities that each individual country has. So play to your strengths. Make sure, whether that's coal, whether that's oil, whether that's gas, whether that's critical minerals, that you exploit what's available, but exploit it in a responsible manner. Make sure that there are good transparency around where the value in the value chain is generated and where we can deliver into that value chain. From an African point of view, make sure that we do. It often doesn't happen through very restrictive regulations. Often by opening up the market with appropriate regulation at the top, you can create that value locally. So we believe, from an electricity point of view, transmission networks to open up areas for renewables, sun and wind, provides great potential. Pipeline infrastructure, like you have in West Africa, trying your best to get that exported out into Europe through pipeline infrastructure, That is essential. All of that requires collaboration, not only locally between business and government, but between different countries as well. So it requires real political will, real strategic intent at the top, and with the right tone at the top to make sure that it happens in an appropriate way, without corruption, and to the benefit of all.
I like what you said about real political will, because it seems that's something that's lacking in Africa. Thank you so much, Andries, Rossouw, for sharing your thoughts with us today on Business Edge. We do appreciate every one of them.
Thank you.